Leadership isn't just about how much effort you give. It's about knowing where to give it and also when to hold on to it. Discernment separates men who stay busy from the leaders who stay aligned. Today, we're leaning into one of the most critical tools that most leaders were probably never even taught, and that's discernment. It's the ability to see what others miss. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Living Beyond Average podcast, where we challenge oversimplified cliches and simplify overcomplicated ideas. The information shared will be grounded in truth, not opinion, facts, not assumptions. Today's episode is titled Discernment, Seeing What Others Miss. Most of what you're calling leadership might just be performance with no clarity. You see, discernment brings alignment, and alignment brings authority. I've led teams under pressure. I've led teams within law enforcement, military, nonprofit organizations, and even on the wrench. And I will tell you that every environment had one thing in common, and that was that effort alone didn't solve most problems, but discernment did. The ability to pause, to assess, to cut through emotion, and make decisions not based on what felt urgent, but what was true. I am your host, Lionel Murphy. I am a veteran, a rancher, a growing leadership coach, and a truth teller. I'm here to dismantle the myths so you don't stay stuck in emotional performance, but rise into a real leadership authority. I speak from my lived experiences. I'm not speaking to you as a clinician, and I'm not offering this as medical advice. What you hear on this podcast is not meant to replace professional counseling or therapy. If you're facing trauma or mental health challenges, please seek qualified professional care. The quote for today is, discernment is not about having all the answers. It's seeing what others might miss. You see, we sometimes confuse knowledge with discernment. But discernment is not about knowing everything. It's about seeing through the noise. It's about seeing through emotions, through the distractions. And it's about recognizing truth when everything else around you feels cloudy. Discernment, it keeps you steady. Today's cliche, just trust your gut. Now, the problem with that is, if you trust your gut, sometimes that might get you caught up. That's because your gut reacts fast. But discernment responds steady. It helps you respond informed. You see, emotions will have you acting on impulse, but wisdom verifies. Leadership requires more than just instinct. It requires clarity. So what are some of the potential emotional impacts when we do lack discernment? Well, let's talk about men. You see, when men lack discernment, they tend to make reactive decisions. They choose to act urgently and act out of urgency rather than wisdom. And we sometimes confuse emotion for authority. But see, when discernment is present, relationships tend to stabilize in business, in our friendships, and even in our marriages. When you can actively slow things down so that you can make informed decisions, your leadership gains respect. This is just a note. Teams will follow steadiness, not noise. So years ago, while I was supervising a patrol shift, we received a call for service about a little girl who was threatening to harm herself. I responded to the scene along with several other deputies, and together we devised a plan. And we put that plan into action. As a supervisor, I was the last voice in whether or not this plan was going to move forward. And it did. The situation was both dynamic and fluid. It caused emotions to run high, and because of the reasons we were there, decisions were happening in real time. But we couldn't lose sight of the goal. The goal was to save a child from harm. So with that, I could not allow what happened next to cause an emotional spike. One deputy voiced his dissatisfaction with the plan that we had already agreed upon. This was not during the planning phase, but while it was being implemented. This caused contention and a level of confusion with other deputies that were on scene. And this was not the time for a discussion. But my initial thought or instinct was to shut him down on the spot because of what was at stake. But I had to pause. Because see, discernment told me to steady my emotions. Discernment told me to hear him out, even if it were briefly. And discernment told me that in doing that, still move forward with the plan that you have in place. The end result was positive. We did save the child. But later on, I did follow up with the deputy, and this was not to reprimand, but to ask a question. You see, I believe that leaders should always lead with a question to avoid making unnecessary assumptions. So what I asked was, what made him speak out? What did he see that I didn't? And for me, that was what discernment looked like in a leadership scenario. Well, what's the truth about it all? With both men and women as it pertains to discernment and decision making. You see, men often feel the pressure to react, to give an immediate answer, or to solve the problem and then move forward. But this urgency is, although not always wrong, it often reflects a deep sense of responsibility and desire to protect, to lead, or to provide stability. But sometimes that speed comes at the cost of reflection. You see, women are different. Women often experience deeper processing, not just responding to what was said, but also to how it was said, what wasn't said, and what it might mean long term. It's not just about logic. For women, it's emotional, it's intuitive, and it is layered. So that processing, it can take more time. But that's not because of hesitation, but because it considers multiple dimensions of the moment. Here's the real leadership move. Discernment doesn't rush. Discernment rules emotion before emotion can rule the decision. So, how can we effectively apply this to a practical leadership situation? Well, you can start by asking yourself these 3 discernment questions regularly. Am I reacting or responding? What emotions are influencing this decision? And what truth do I need to verify before I move? Discernment slows decisions just long enough to ensure alignment. So, how can this be applied to leadership? This week, I want you to pause before making any major decisions. Don't ask, how do I feel? Ask, what's actually true right now? So remember, discernment isn't slow, it's steady. So I want you to work on leading steady. As we close, I will leave you with this. Discernment keeps you from emotional leadership collapse. The challenge this week is cut through the noise, lead with clarity, and try seeing what others might miss. If you're interested in the references used to inform this episode, you can find them in the captions. Until next we meet, I want you to lead with integrity, ride with confidence, live beyond average.